Bank Arena. Biddy basketball has a special place in Wichita's heart. Executive Director Daryl Winston is with us tonight. Jeffrey Parson is here, so is Jen Bates with all the day's news as Eyewitness News Weekend continues with Sports Sunday. All right, we stay with the hoops appropriately when we continue. Former K-State player and coach and now Executive Director of Biddy basketball, Daryl Winston checks in as Sports Sunday continues. Sports Sunday continuing, and we're very pleased to spend some time with Daryl Winston, the director of Biddy basketball here. And let's talk about your mission at Biddy basketball. If you had to describe what your mission was with these youngsters, what would it be?
My mission here at Biddy basketball is a ministry. The Salvation Army operates and runs Biddy basketball, and my ministry here is to help kids, to help young kids from 5 to 6 all the way up to 12 to 13 just develop a basketball game, develop a mental framework to be competitive, and to have a Christian outlook on life.
I would imagine it's probably easier at this level to manage the children than it is the parents. Talk about that a little bit.
That's a real easy job with the kids. Parents now are fixated with their child being the next LeBron James or Michael Jordan, and that's good in a sense because you want them to think in a competitive manner. But basketball is a sport, and it's a team sport. And you have to look at it that way, and parents have to conduct themselves just as the players do on the court as a team sport.
Daryl, you're old school, and I would imagine that this is new school kind of stuff, even with an old message. You see youngsters that may come into this game maybe not thinking of it in terms of a team sport because everything is such an individual pursuit anymore. What's the message here to try to really get team basketball back into the collective mentality?
Well, the main thought is that when you play as a team, you win together. And that's the main thesis that we try to portray here at Biddy basketball. Kids come in with individual ideas because they see college kids and they see NBA players working individually. Here at Biddy, we are a training center. In the summers and the fall, we train kids to play basketball. It's not just playing games here, it's teaching. And that's the thing that I emphasize with my coaches and with my teams and in our summer clinics and camps, that you teach team sports. And that's what makes kids and makes teams better.
When you have so many type A personalities running around trying to impose their will, as director, I would imagine you have an awful lot of challenges dealing with some of those personalities that every now and then may need a little reeling in. Do you have a tried and true rule for that?
Yes. Presence is very important. Being 6'6" and 300 pounds helps that, make it easy. But also the fact of my experience, my background, being a college coach, being a good college player, being a coach throughout different leagues and stuff. I'm able to exhibit through my ministry the fact that team play and coaching and learning fundamentals is very important to playing competitive basketball.
All right, let's talk about your past a little bit because it's very intriguing playing at Kansas State University, winning it, being part of a champion team there, and being a guy that went to the NCAA tournament in 1977. How do you look back on that now and then compare and contrast it to the way that the game is being played right now? Some folks like to say that the good old days weren't so good. I would imagine that you probably think the good old days were just that.
Well, the good old days were great. I mean, team basketball was very integral with Jack Hartman. Jack Hartman was a great coach. The Big Eight, as it was known in those days, was a very competitive league with Kansas State, Kansas, and Missouri leading the top. But we found and emphasized the fact that team play, was always integral, and therefore that led us to championships. In 75, we lost to Syracuse to go to the Final Four, and then we turn around in 77 and lose to Marquette on a very controversial call. All along, we played as a team. We played hard. We knew it was competitive. We knew we had a coach that when we got tight, he would be there to make sure the X's and O's were done and we got things accomplished, and we enjoyed it and we had fun and we were very successful.
A lot of people might not know that Al McGuire's last loss came to Wichita State in 1977, and you guys had Al McGuire and Marquette on the way to their national championship pretty much on the ropes. Something happened at the end of that game with a late tip that is still to this day called the Winston Rule. Explain how that came about a little bit, and tell folks about that, because it's an interesting story.
It's a great story. Kansas State University, we were led by Mike Evans, a great guard in those days, and we were beating Marquette. And we were leading all the way up until the last minute of the game. Marquette took the lead, and then Evans took a shot out of the corner with about 10 seconds left. I tipped it in. I dared not dunk it in case I missed it. I feared Jack Hartman, but I tipped it in, and on the tip in, the ball was in the cylinder. I got fouled by Bo Ellis. In those days, in the NBA, you had a continuation three-point play. In college, you didn't. And the rule was so bad that they changed it the next year. So instead of us tying the game and going to the free throw line to win the game, we ended up losing the game by 1 on that call.
Yeah, because the rule then was you actually had to have control of the basketball. You couldn't tip it in, something that we see now 10, 20 times during the course of a basketball game.
Every time I watch a game and see a tip in and a foul, I cringe because that was my play and I made it famous. I should have asked for residuals on it so I can get some money.
Jack Hartman, someone that I was very blessed to at least get to cover for a little bit before we lost him. Talk about the magic of this man as a coach, and I know that probably his messages continue to resonate with you all these many years later.
Yes, I played for Jack Hartman for 4 years. I found him a stern disciplinarian but fair coach. And then as a coach, as a young coach, I played for Jack Hartman, and the knowledge that I got from him is irreplaceable. I mean, the man kept his poise. He was very logic with all of his thinking. He had his players playing to their highest expectations, and that's one thing you respect from a coach. Here at Biddy, I try to get my coaches to emulate that, to make sure that your kids have the respect for you, they have the discipline to understand and know what you want from them, and to play as hard as you can, and that's what we did as players for Jack Hartman.
I always found with Coach Hartman that he always made his actions speak louder than his words. He was a man of words, but his actions always overspoke with his words.
Yes, they did. And some of his actions were short and blunt, and some of his stares and glares that you got, you know what to do. But in the end, you as a player knew and you respected him as a coach. And the one thing I always remember from Jack Hartman is that he always told us as players to give us confidence that you keep the game close, I'll win it in the end. And, buddy, we won a whole lot of them just for that.
You also had a very interesting situation at the age of 28, becoming really a head coach at Kansas State University after your beloved head coach suffered a heart attack, and put you in a very interesting situation of taking something really on the fly. As you look back on that experience, what are the things that you take away from it and remember?
Well, what a tremendous experience. Being the youngest coach in the country in 1985, taking a team that had just lost their coach to a heart attack, trying to rebuild their confidence to come back out and play in a tough Big 8 with Danny Manning and Wayman Tisdale at respective schools at KU and Oklahoma. But to be able to take that team. Now, my first thought, and the first thing you think about is moving over one seat, it would be okay, but it was very tough. The thing about now, instead of me tugging on Coach Hartman's jacket saying, put Rolando in, put this player in, I had to make that decision. And it's different. Moving over one seat is a big challenge to what had to be done. But we had a good, successful year that year and finished hard, and the kids played hard.
I know one thing. If I'd had Rolando Blackman, he would have always been in the game. It wouldn't have been much question about that. When you look at Kansas State now, and I know that you're still a big fan of Kansas State, the game has changed so much. When you watch basketball now, and Kansas State obviously still means so much to you, is there part of you that says, the game has changed so much, or do you grow with the game as well, and how do you view it now?
I think basically you grow with the game. Yeah. You actually change with the game. You watch the athletes and players. The athletes are now 6'8", 6'9", doing things that guys 6'3" and 6'4" did when I played and stuff. And I have tremendous applause for coaches like Frank Martin that can come out and recruit those athletes to Manhattan, Kansas, and do a good job with assembling them and coaching them and motivating them to do a great job.
Darryl Winston still doing great things in the community, director of Biddy Basketball. Thanks for your time, my friend. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bruce.
All right, our parting shots when we come back right here on Sports Sunday.